Yes, let's get into Venom. We've got some news from. Oh gosh, wrong article. There we go.
Get your job right.
I'm totally failing right now.
I know.
I'm failing big time.
I can't read. I would take your job if I couldn't read.
She can't read. I can't hit buttons properly. We're screwing this all up.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. All right. So it says Marvel, Tom Hardy, Venom out of the MCU. Wah, wah, wah.
No.
I know, right? Tom Hardy's Venom looks to be out of the MCU, judging from the Let There Be Carnage and Spider-Man No Way Home post-credit scenes. And then it says right here, spoiler, follow for both flicks. Spoilers follow for both flicks. So if you haven't seen Venom or you haven't seen Spider-Man No Way Home, please do not watch this segment. We do not want to ruin these parts for you. But I'm guessing most of the people, if they're watching content like this, they've definitely seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it says, Venom, Let There Be Carnage post-credit scene. The Venom, Let There Be Carnage post-credit scene seemed to confirm that Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock and Venom were part of the MCU, as the footage seemed to show them in Mexico getting snapped and returning 5 years later, where the Tom Holland Spider-Man was shown, which was an obvious way to connect Venom to Spider-Man, where it's teased Venom would go after Spider-Man in New York. I think a lot of people thought that. They thought he was going to be a part of No Way Home. Did you think you were going to see him in there?
I really thought so, because there were so many fan theories that he was going to be one of the 6.
And we've seen so much integration between Sony and Marvel for these last few movies. I mean, allowing Andrew Garfield and allowing Tobey Maguire to appear, that's a lot of integration of Sony characters in Marvel films.
But also, I kind of see where they're going, because like the villains, like the number of villains, like how many they took from each movie.
Yeah.
So Tobey Maguire's, they had 2 of them, which is Green Goblin and Doc Ock. And then from Andrew Garfield, it was Electro, and then
Sandman?
No, he was in Tobey Maguire's.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
3. It's 3. I don't like this. This is uneven.
Unfair.
This is unfair. Bring in Venom.
Yep. So I'm honestly glad that they didn't, because I think it would have, like, Tom Hardy is so good as that character. I think it does him a disservice to just put him behind William Dafoe, who did fantastic, to put him behind Alfred Molina, who did fantastic. Then he becomes a background character when, in all honesty, he's becoming the star in his. I mean, Tom Hardy's a star already, but Venom as a character.
No star.
But Venom as a character is becoming a star in its own right with its own franchises. Both those movies have done extremely well. So there's no reason to just use him as a bit player in those other movies. All those other characters are no longer part of ongoing franchises, whereas Venom absolutely is.
I don't know. I kind of wanted to see more. That's all I wanted.
Of Venom? In that movie? I mean, that scene was very short. I mean,
it was.
I didn't, but that's more than I expected. I didn't expect to see him at all. I thought that was, I thought they were going to save him and leave him out, but
they were going to save Venom.
Yep. So it says, it says, the Venom Let There Be Carnage post-credit scene, let's start again here, seemed to confirm that Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock and Venom were part of the MCU, as footage seemed to show them in Mexico getting snapped and returning 5 years later, where the Tom Holland Spider-Man was shown, which was an obvious way to connect Venom to Spider-Man, where it was teased Venom would go after Spider-Man in New York. However, that doesn't exactly appear to be the case. The Spider-Man No Way Home mid-credit scene happened to feature Eddie and Venom in Mexico again, where rather oddly they knew nothing about the Avengers. Remember, per above, they seemed to be part of the MCU. And then when we saw Eddie disappear after Doctor Strange made the spell to correct things, which sent everyone from the multiverse back to their own universe. So that means that Tom Hardy's Venom was never a part of the MCU. Right, and was sent back to his own universe? Question mark. And we also saw the little piece of Venom left over, which I am guessing corroborates those rumors that Tom Holland will be sporting the black Spider-Man black Spider-Man costume from the Secret Wars comic at some point in the MCU. But again, it won't directly be connected to the Tom Hardy version of Venom, because they're not the same. They're keeping these universes fairly separate.
I don't know. I'm kind of excited, like, on their new take of Venom, because, like, the Tobey Maguire one, that one was kind of iffy.
Yeah, well, nobody liked Topher Grace.
What's wrong with him?
And I'm saying nobody liked him in that role. That 70s show is fantastic. Nobody has a problem with him in that.
Okay,
in
because
that show.
I was like, I grew up with that 70s show, and I loved the ending of that show.
How did it end?
You never watched it?
I never watched it.
Oh my god! So basically, the whole show, like, they're smoking weed.
Yeah, that part I do know.
Yeah, so they're smoking weed. So the finale episode, basically, what's the dad's name? I forgot. So basically the dad finally goes down to the basement. And he's like, oh my God, what are you doing? And like they got caught smoking weed. And he was like, no, none of this.
None of this.
None of this. So he like kicks all of them upstairs and he tells his wife what happened. And basically that's how it kind of ends. Like they go to like being adults because their dad told them, don't do that.
Funny that dad never smelled it before.
Well, it's because like I think they only do like a little bit.
Okay.
And I think he was like a little bit curious. He was like, where did my son and my adopted son and all his friends go?
What is the dad's name in that show? I
don't know, but I think the actor passed away, didn't he?
No, he did not.
Oh.
I don't think so.
I'm creating rumors that shouldn't start yet.
I just watched. He was in. He did a really good episode of House where he plays Dave Matthews' father. Mm-hmm. We're looking. Keep talking, Miracle.
Oh.
It's.
But yeah, that's how it ends.
Kurtwood Smith.
Okay.
Kurtwood Smith. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's I knew he had a name that sounded interesting like that. I couldn't remember quite what it was. Back on topic to Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy.
Come
back.
We're back to Tom Hardy. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it says right down here, it says Tom Hardy was never a part of the MCU. So what happened? Well, the Tom Hardy Venom was never a part of the MCU and was only brought in to give Tom Holland Spider-Man the black suit. Well, the Venom 2 post-credit scene made it seem as if Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock was snapped. In truth, it was he never was snapped, but was brought into the MCU 5 years later, following the spell having been cast, much the same way the Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Man villains were brought into the MCU. Recall how in No Way Home it was mentioned that villains had died and they were now alive, and that in Holland's universe the tech is better. That's because the Holland MCU is in the future, much more into the future than Green Goblin and Doc Ock's own universe, where they died years ago. Okay, so that makes more sense because I actually had timeline questions when we were originally discussing that.
Yeah, I was reading a couple of it. They said our plot hole with Sandman, that wasn't true. Like he was only there because like he wanted to help his Spider-Man and then yada yada yada. I
didn't hear that line. He only wanted to help the Spider-Man from his universe.
Well, he was like Peter, and like Tom Holland's Peter was like, yeah, and he was like, wait, who are you?
Okay, so he was there to help all, but it still doesn't explain why he was randomly bad at the end, does it? Am I missing something?
I have to read the comment again because I was reading like the comment section. Which
you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, but I was reading it and they said, yeah, it's not a plot hole. They do explain it.
Okay, and I'm like, we must have just missed that part.
We might have missed it. Yep. Maybe we should have went to the second screening.
Could have seen it again. Mm-hmm. It's okay. I still missed. Yeah, I didn't get that part. Like it. I don't think Tim got it either.
No, Tim said there was like a heavily flawed area because like they don't explain. He just turns evil. And my theory was like he only turned evil because the Green Goblin told
him to.
That whole spiel saying we're gods.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, is that enough to turn him evil?
Mm-hmm. Because that's what turned Electro evil.
Yeah.
Which he was.
Well, no, he was kind of always like. I mean, he was never really good. Mm-hmm. Like he wanted he liked the way that the power there made him feel. So that felt more real to me. So it says, recall in No Way Home was mentioned that the villains had died and they were now alive, and in the Holland universe the tech is better. That is because the Holland MCU is in the future, much more than the future of the Green Goblin and Doc Ock's own universe, where they died years ago. Mm-hmm. So again, what happened with the Tom Hardy Venom is that he wasn't snapped, but he was brought to the MCU through Doctor Strange's spell. So the snap never happened, is what they're saying. Okay. However, the question remains, didn't the spells only bring those people into the MCU because they knew Spider-Man? Well, admittedly, it's a rather weak answer, but in the Venom 2 post-credit scene, Venom reveals to Eddie that the symbiotes experience a large number of things, so somehow we are to assume that the symbiote knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man. It's possible that since the symbiotes are cosmic, that they could be connected through time and space, so that in the future, when Tom Holland gets that little piece of the symbiote, Venom could know about it in the past, and hence the spell works, or even that Hardy's symbiote is connected to the Topher Grace version. I think they said the hive mind connected connects them, right? So the
Yeah.
hive mind connects the symbiotes, which would explain how he knows him.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that at least makes some sense, at least a little bit more. Of course, that is not going to stop it says, obviously, the Venom 2 post-credit scene would have spoiled things for No Way Home if they explained Venom as part of the multiverse, but instead, they pulled one over on the fans and made fans think Hardy got snapped, but he never actually did. Of course, this is not going to stop fans from thinking that at one time, Tom Hardy and Venom were going to be part of the MCU, and that something changed, but it's explained enough that where that isn't happening. Oh, God. I'm having a hard time reading today.
It's okay.
It's a very hard time reading. I like Hardy. I would prefer Hardy outside of the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want Hardy involved in the MCU. I like him on his own, in his own universe, experiencing his own stories.
He has his own special quirkiness, and like I don't want it to be tampered.
Tonally, it doesn't really fit with the MCU in the same way. There's some humor, but there's similar types of humor, but I don't feel like it really translates the same way. I would rather see him interacting with Morbius coming up than yes. So
because Venom can react a funny way again, like how he reacted to Carnage. He was like, "No."
So here's a question. So just because so Spider-Man can get the suit through the droplet of venom that was left on the bar, right? So does that mean that there's no venom left in Eddie Brock when he was taken through the multiverse, or is that just a piece of
it's just a piece because
Okay.
like if you're familiar with the comics, they're like low pieces.
Well, so they can break off.
Yeah,
Okay.
because like how I was like explaining to you about the hybrid symbiotes, basically they took pieces of him, so he still existed as one entity, but taking pieces of him and genetically modifying them, making hybrids, they're different entities.
Like Cletus Cassidy biting him.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes perfect sense because Cletus Cassidy bites him and gets infected with through his blood. Okay, so he's basically a walking hazmat suit.
Yeah.
He should never be out in public. If Eddie Brock was a good person, he would never be out in public. He would just wrap himself up in bandages and stay in his apartment for fear of infecting the world.
But come on. Venom needs to eat. He can't just eat chickens.
Just give him chickens. We love chickens here. Why can't he eat chicken?
But he can't eat his chicken because he's the same thing like Tim, where he's like, that's a pet.
Good point. That's true. They are adorable. We don't eat the chickens here. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.